All right, good evening, everybody. I believe the microphones are on. Yes, we are on. So we will now commence our Port Commission meeting of December 6, 2023. Yes. And to lead off this evening, if we can ask Tim Campbell if you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice.
Good. All right, so the commission did meet in closed session, and port manager, or excuse me, port attorney, if you'll report out if there, well, let us know if there's anything we need to report out.
No reportable action was taken.
No reportable action was taken. Very good, okay. And so, Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, establish a quorum.
Commissioner Sophozia Hall.
Here.
Commissioner Orozco.
Here.
Commissioner Early.
Here.
Commissioner Guerrero. No, I think she's running late. Chair Villegas.
Chair Villegas is here. Commissioner Guerrero is not going to be with us this evening. Right, so what I am going to do in light of the time is we've got a couple items on consent. So what I would prefer to do, if the commission is amenable to moving around the agenda. So we have a presentation as item 2. So we'll take public comment first, and then we'll move on to the consent, and then we'll get into the presentation. So, Madam Clerk, do we have any slips to speak? Items that are not on the agenda?
One item, one
One
person.
item.
Ben
Okay.
Siegel.
All right. Welcome.
So, good evening, Commissioners. I work for the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, and I live in West Sacramento, down in the Southport, Bridgeway Lakes area. And I'm a chemical engineer by trade, and prior to working for the Bay Area Air Quality Management District as an enforcement manager, I used to work for the California Air Resources Board enforcement as an enforcement manager for about 21 years. And then prior to that, with another air district in engineering experience. So the issues and concerns that I have come across, which I have reported to my local air district, which is Yolo Serrano, about some of the ports issue and the ship issues, we've had numerous instances in the last couple of years where the unloading operation from the ship unloading operation at both the terminals has caused a significant amount of dust. And this was just an incident from last Tuesday, and I can present that if I can pass up.
No, there you put on that red box.
You can continue with your presentation. We won't hold it.
Couple
We won't hold the
minutes,
time
yeah.
against
All
you.
right.
Go ahead.
Okay. So the concerns that I have raised earlier in the past, and I've spoken with Rick and also with the air quality people that are that have local air jurisdiction, is these are operations sometimes that have led to high cement dust emissions. And as part of California Air Resources Board and part of the 9 cement plants that we have in the state, I was an expert. I taught the EPA cement control technology class. And part of those emissions that we see, that you'll see in the picture, hopefully displayed soon, we have concerns about mercury and hydrogen chloride that's inherently part of the process of raw materials making cement. And what I'm here to talk about is that the expansion of the port, hopefully it's sustainable to the point that we have best practices that are incorporated in the environmental program going forward. We brought this attention to the local agencies as well. There's been some enforcement action, and that's not what I'm here for. I'm here just to make sure that we install these additional controls, such as sucking under the vacuum at the bottom of the ships, but also having a tarp or a cover. We've had numerous instances in the Bay Area that I've been involved in enforcement cases against the refineries that load out petroleum coke from the refineries onto ships and dropping that pet coke onto the ships, causing all that high dust emissions. We've had numerous violations. And so my intent here is not to document some of those violations that the Air District has registered against these 2 companies, but to talk about what can we do to install additional controls like tarps, covers, spray bars, misting system, and we've had some good success at the Bay Area ports, covering these ship ports during the unloading process. Because as the sweeper sweeps the bottom of the ships, we have this huge fallout which causes these dust emissions. And if the residents are being exposed to mercury and hydrogen chloride, that is not acceptable. So to kind of have a relationship with the operators, the parent company, the ship unloading the crew personnel, to make sure that these environmental sustainable efforts are.
All right, so my apologies. So the time has expired. So what I would encourage you to do, if you've got anything in written form that you want to share with the commission, we'd gladly accept it. You can share it with the clerk. In the meantime, if you want to share additional information with the port manager who's sitting over to our right.
Right.
But we do need to move on with the rest of the agenda.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
and I'll be happy to add some of these additional measures and talk privately if you like.
Absolutely. Very good. Thank you so much for coming this evening.
I'll leave this right.
Very good. Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, any other slips to speak on this items of not on the agenda?
No.
Seeing none. Okay, then I can barely see over there. I'm assuming that. All right.
No.
Very good. Okay. So with that, then, what I'd like to do is take items, what are we doing here? Items,
3.
we got consideration of the minutes, item 2, and consideration of setting the time and dates for the 24-25 regular meeting. Is that, yeah, that's both on consent. So unless there are questions or concerns regarding any of the items on consent, I'm looking for a motion to move those two.
I'll move the consent agenda.
All right, so motion and a second by, yep. Motion to my left and then second to my right. You got it?
Okay. Doing the roll.
Yep, please.
Commissioner Lopez-Yoho.
Aye.
Commissioner Roscoe.
Aye.
Commissioner Early.
Aye.
Chair Vegas.
Aye. Okay, so then with that, we will then come back to item 2, which is the North Terminal Investment Plan Workshop presentation. Rick, do you want to lead off on that one?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. SSA is here tonight as well as the ILWU workforce at the port. I just want to make a few introductory comments before I turn it over to SSA for the presentation. So a little historical context for what we're going to talk about tonight. As you know, the port is 60 years old now, and much of our infrastructure and facilities are original, early 1960s vintage. Our ability to finance new facilities and frankly, even to adequately maintain existing facilities has been a longstanding issue. In 2012, we were in a really bad place financially, and the last channel deepening effort had just failed, and our future prospects were very uncertain. So at that time, 2013, we implemented what we have today, a landlord operating model. We executed the North Terminal lease with SSA, frankly, as a survival strategy. That model's proven to be quite successful. SSA has been able to grow the labor force at the port significantly in the last 10 years. And now we have, with this success, we have expectations about, making new investments in the terminal. We've established I think, a solid operational partnership with SSA. Going forward, our expectation is to expand that partnership to an investment partnership so that when we're looking at investing in new facilities, we have a private equity partner behind us with expertise in the maritime field. And so, a public-private partnership which mitigates risks to both parties and leverages our respective strengths it may be a viable path forward. So this evening's workshop is a first glance at potential investments to modernize the North Terminal with new cargo facilities that are aligned with market opportunities, as our expert SSA will discuss, environmental sustainability and community support. And so with that, I want to turn it over to Joe Carrillo with SSA for a presentation. on a terminal investment plan concept.
Good evening, Commission. I want to express my sincere gratitude to the City of West Sacramento, the Port Commission, and the ILWU Longshore Union Division for the enduring partnership forged since 2006. The unwavering support from all parties has brought us to this pivotal moment, and we eagerly anticipate many more years of collaboration. The journey began with our recently executed 5-year lease extending until 2028. As a crucial component of this agreement, I am here to delve into Sections 7 and 8, specifically addressing an obsolete facilities list and forward-looking modernization plan at the North Terminal. These strategic elements are instrumental in propelling us towards the future. I will share the concise overview of our findings pertaining to Sections 7 and 8, setting the stage for insights from our West Sacramento Terminal Manager, Ray, right here, Arciniega. He will provide a current day snapshot of our operations. Following that, President Tim Campbell of the ILWU Longshore Union will share perspectives on labor at the port and discuss our shared vision for the future. I trust that our presentation will offer valuable insights for the city and the community. Moreover, I believe it aligns seamlessly with the city's future climate action plan. Thank you for the time and considering this presentation tonight. A lot of you know me already. I see you guys at numerous locations, and thank you all for coming. I just want to kind of express the gratitude we have for being a partner. Give you a little overview of just who we are. And for a lot of you probably already know who we are on the commission, but more so for yourself, just a little quick insight as well for the public. Our profile, we're a family-based company, started in 1949, based out of Bellingham, Washington. And we've moved down the coast and continue to move down to Mexico and Panama, Vietnam, and other locations. We've been in business for over 75 years. And we move commerce, different types of commerce, containers, cars. Here we do, break bulk bagged rice for our local growers and rice millers. And we also do bulk cement coming in for the industrial part of our business out in the region. So those are the two main commodities we do at this moment. And we do some steel. Kind of a footprint of who we are and where we kind of are heavily kind of stationed in the Americas primarily, with some locations in South Africa, Vietnam, and New Zealand. Close up look at our operations in the region. Kind of our footprint of what we do and operate. We have intermodal operations. We do drayage services in and out of Oakland. We have American Flagship Partnership where we do works with our American Flagship Matson. So we work there doing local hauls to and from Hawaii and up and down the coast of the U.S. And Benicia, we do autos in Benicia. And Stockton, there's a little bit of mixed commodities we do there. This is what we look like today in West Sacramento Port. We have 30 feet of draft. We have 5 berths where we can berth ships and do labor thing as well for two other ships. We have a short line service, rail service, and then also accompanied by the Union Pacific. We have a perfect location with the 5 AD corridors to haul in and out of the city. Some of the commodities we move right now, like I mentioned earlier, it's bagged rice coming into export to Asia, South Korea, and Japan to be exact. We do about 300,000 tons of bagged rice a year. Imports bulk cement coming in for Caltrans, other different places around the area, for all our building and all our highways. We see the HOV lanes that just happened recently and other things they're doing in the future. That's kind of what we do and what comes in with our partner, the Two River Cement. And we also imported last year some rice for the first time coming into our area. It wasn't really, they really didn't like it too much, but we needed some because there was a drought and they only planted half the acreage that the rice growers were able to plant because of the drought we had last year. Talk about our workforce. We have the most registered longshoreman union warehouse union, currently 52 members, with an additional 80-plus members of part-time employees that are well-paid jobs working in the port there, and then are about 10 to 12 of us as well as management there at the port. Not including some of our other tenants. There's 11 more tenants on the North Terminal that have also employees there as well. So I wanted to, get through that real quick so I can go over kind of the thoughts we've had. We've talked with Rick and we've talked with numerous people like, okay, well, we've been around since 2006 at the Port of West Sacramento, our company. And they're like, I always heard like, okay, well, what are you going to do? Or what can you do more? And we're kind of at one of the stalemate today because we are at capacity. We're at basically we can't grow anymore with what we're given right now. So we have to figure out, okay, now what else can we do on our current footprint? And that's how this came about. So on section 7, it talked about us providing a list, and we work closely with the port manager, Rick Toft. We work closely with the local ILW union, Local 18, and their rank and file, and also the president, Tim, to say, okay, what out there can we start to look at that's kind of old relics, and let's move into something that we can do that's gonna, be environmentally friendly as well grow the port. So we came up with a phase-in approach. And as you can see on the plan is you have the red would be phase 1 and the yellow would be phase 2. Some of the items that you'll see that's on the list on phase 1 is T-belts. That used to be for wood chips. Wood chips coming into the port. That was a high commodity coming in back in the 80s, about the 80s. Yeah. 80s, wood chips. 80s, right? Yeah. And the old warehouse where they used to have fertilizer. It's basically you really can't do much with it anymore. It's eroded from the base. So we want to see how we can make that more into a laydown area, because I'm sure all of you have heard of offshore wind projects coming up, and on the news every single day about offshore wind, and we need 5 gigawatts of power by 2030 by Biden, right, or California by Newsom. So there's all kinds of ways that ports like these small ports can help. Not saying we're going to build and erect a 600-foot towers and tow them out from West Sacramento. No, it's more like what are the auxiliary types of items we can use to use this land efficiently. And that's kind of an example I wanted to mention. But all those, you can look over the list. Those are just items we don't use anymore, and we haven't used them for years. Our phase 1 approach, basically, that we kind of came up with was phase 2 of our implementation of EV chargers. West Sacramento, that I am aware of, it has the largest fleet of zero-emission heavy-duty electric forklifts globally. Little West Sacramento, Stockton has more, but they're not like with one owner. The port of Stockton has 12. We have 12 down there. Here in West Sacramento, we have 14 forklifts, and we have 6 on order coming in. So for a total of 20, hopefully by the end of next year, to run our bagged cargo business, the rice. So it's going to be zero emission completely. That's kind of already going. The city helped with our first phase of 8 chargers. We're working on a phase 2 at the other side of the terminal for 5 more chargers that I'm working with port manager Rick Toft on. And that's going to help us because it's really far to move. So the closer we get to the chargers, or we have chargers where we can plug in, then we won't have to be moving them, because it takes away a lot of operational time. And we're finding this out as we've been doing this since 2021 in West Sacramento. Also, the demolition of the area that's you see up above on the board here. There's the warehouse E and the T-belts. It goes for a nice little land for whatever we want. You can name. You can put empty containers there if you wanted to. You can put chassis there if you wanted to. Anything you want to put into that little space. Steel, you can put steel in there, industrial steel. So there's just numerous things we can use when we have an area that's laid down. We really don't have a lay down spot on the terminal now. We have one that's right on berth 6, which is in the kind of center of the terminal, but we can't clog that up because the ships come in at that little open dock, we call it. As we move on to like the next phase, phase 2, phase one will also try to bring in a shed, another shed for capacity, but also for resiliency. We're one of the only companies and one of the only probably cities that are at this phase in EV with heavy duty. You have PepsiCo, they're doing really strong efforts with their semi-trucks and step vans. You have UPS, and then you have Little West Sacramento doing the heavy duty forklifts that are 18 metric ton capacity. And so right now we're at the third phase where we want to try to build resiliency. So when we have brownouts, we have to be able to run and operate and not try to use as many diesels. So that's where we're at now, trying to find battery storage to help with that next level of growth for moving everything to zero emission. But for phase 2, similar is just continue to build off of what we built on phase 1, continue with the microgrid, another storage shed, things that are kind of suitable to the city, that makes sense, where we are basically great partners in trying to find cargoes that match up with the climate action plan. Our third phase would just continue to look at where we can capture more cargo. There's been a lot of inquiries of different types of cargoes coming in and out of the state that we can kind of capture with what we have today. If we had, in the future, there's can be other different services we can offer, and I can give you a kind of an idea here after I give you guys the kind of oversight of the budget that we came up with, because we do this kind of everywhere. We kind of have a little idea of what costs are for these types of projects, because we run terminals throughout the U.S. and the world. So we came up with a budgetary number of about $75 million to get this type of phase and approach for the entire process to work and remodel the port to match up to what the next cargoes will be in the future, which we're seeing just offshore wind. I'm seeing a lot of project cargo coming this way. And during COVID, it was interesting because it was so busy at all the other ports. We were able to get 2 different commodities because they were so busy. We brought in 2 different commodities that were never brought here before. And we were trying to keep it, but it was, we needed the space for our core business, which is the rice. Just once again, talking about sustainability, and thank you, Ben, for your comments. We can talk offline about that. And we've done some good work. I mean, the city has done a 550 plus solar on site that we use. And we were net zero last year. So we basically, the port of West Sacramento was a net zero port. With all the 11 tenants on North Terminal. So that's kind of an exciting thing. We also did an LED project in 2017. We brought in all the 20 forklifts in the last 3 years. And then this year we're going through a green marine certification. So basically we want to measure our environmental sustainability, how we monitor our operations, how do we become more efficient? So it's a volunteer program, and we're taking that leap. We were the only terminal, West Sacramento, out of our whole globe to start this, us, and then 1 container port in Long Beach. So it's our port, Long Beach, are the 2 that started Green Marine last year. And we've been a part of the community. We've been trying to work with different parts of the communities, Rotary, I've been working with the Chamber of Commerce for the last 6 years, just trying to understand the city and how it works and operates just in general. And for the most part, it's been trying to just keep the business going, what we have now, but also I see there's a good future in this little port. You know, it's 82 acres of land. I mean, that's we only use about 35 acres of it because we can't move. You know, they're building a brand new terminal in Hawaii or Pasha, and it's 82 acres. When I was out there visiting on a conference, I thought about Little West Sacramento and our port and the dreams we can do here that matches everything, that matches, you know, our vision, the city's vision, and the community's vision. I mean, that's our goal. You know, it's always been our goal, been taught like that, and we try to do the best we can wherever we go. So for now, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Joe. Any questions at this point? Comments or, Joe, so you were planning on handing off additional parts of the presentation or no?
What's that?
Are you?
Yeah, I can talk, Ray can talk a little
Yeah, I
bit
was
about,
gonna say,
is that okay?
How,
Did you want?
so Chair, yeah, I'm just curious, how would you prefer the questions? Do you want to have it sort of after we've seen everything, just in case, as we're asking, it might come up?
It doesn't
and
matter. I
later
mean, I can
portions
stay
of
here
it?
too. I can stay here and we can just kind of.
Why don't we, yeah, why don't we go ahead and have Ray's presentation, then we'll ask questions at the end so that we're mindful of the
Sounds
time.
good.
So why don't we go ahead and do that? Then we'll have them.
Good afternoon, Port Commission. Thank you for having me. My name is Ray Arsenault. I'm the port manager at SSA Pacific. I think I've met you guys in the past before. Just wanted to talk briefly about the overview of what type of cargoes we handle there at the port. I think Joe touched on it a little bit. Primarily, we're a two-port commodity. Export bag rice to Korea and Japan, about 300,000 tons a year, roughly. And we import about 600 to 700,000 tons of bulk cement from Asia. Some of the challenges that we're currently dealing with in the Port of Sacramento is space constraints. And what happens is when these contracts get issued and they go out to all these different millers to get bidded on, they bid after these U.S. contracts, and when they get awarded these contracts, sometimes the shipment dates are very, very close together. So what that does, what type of challenge that presents to us is we only have so much space at Port of West Sacramento. We have 5 transit sheds, 2 of them being kind of like in the back reach. They're not as close to the pier as we'd like them to be, but we deal with that challenge, and we just kind of add on more labor as needed to help keep things rolling. But what we're seeing lately and what we're going to run into more this year is what's going to happen is we're not going to have the space. Some of these contracts that are supposed to come to Sacramento will probably have to go to other ports in the area, which means that, you know, that's lost jobs, that's lost for the city of West Sacramento, as you well know. And, you know, it's something that, you know, there's immediate need for, you know, more space, more storage shed space that would help us correct that problem right away, help us, you know, service our customer base that we currently have, and hopefully, you know, help capture some more of that market share, which we don't currently have. I'd say we probably have about 90% of the business in the region. We'd like to capture all of it, but those are the challenges that we're faced with currently. It's going to be a lot more busy this year because, as Joe mentioned, they planted over 500,000 acres of crops this year. So they expect it to be extremely busy. On average, we usually do about 22 to 24 vessels a year, 13,000 ton shipments that go to Japan, 20 to 22,000 ton metric shipments that go to Korea. And it becomes very challenging because it takes about 30 days to receive in 22,000 tons of cargo that go to Korea, and about 14 to 15 days to receive in the Japanese cargo. So with more space, it would immediately solve some big issues. It would also allow us the ability to be more active in the market and go after additional cargoes like the steel coils, you know, which is very good business. It's not it's a very clean cargo. We got a very knowledgeable workforce that knows how to handle the cargo. We've done project cargo there in the past, so additional laydown space will also be a huge benefit as well. I think overall, this investment plan is a benefit for all the stakeholders involved, including the city, SSA, the port, and our local longshore division. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So is that the end of your presentation then, Joe? or-
And then we would want to have Tim talk about, if you want, about.
Absolutely, yes.
Is that okay?
Correct. I was going to ask for public comment following your presentation, but you're done.
Yeah, I'm done. Just about the marketing side of it, that's all.
Okay.
Ray kind of touched on it.
Okay, very good.
Okay,
So
that's
what I'd
okay.
like to do, with indulgence of the rest of the commission, we'll take some public comment, and then we'll go back to questions specific to you. So, all right?
There is no public comment.
There is none. Okay. Did you want to make a comment? Okay, he's part of your presentation. Yeah, yep, go on up. Oh, it's fine. I didn't see it.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for having me. First of all, I'd like to thank SSA for a great presentation. Rick, I know you guys have been working hard to get this together. It's a lot of moving pieces, especially with the transition. I'm going to read something here. These aren't my glasses, so let's see how it goes. SSA has been operating at the Port of West Sacramento since 2006 as a quasi-landlord. It wasn't until 2013 that the Port of West Sacramento entered into a model of a full landlord port. The last grant monies that was applied for and received was a Tiger grant. The grant money received for the port purchased a crane, one transit shed, a light on top of a building, and a bomb robot for the police station, West Sacramento Police Station. Since the crane's been sold to Bellingham, which is it's an appealing piece of equipment to have when you're offloading these project cargoes, because it creates a jurisdictional issue of having a different union out there operating, and it creates an added cost to the customer. So losing that crane was detrimental. I understand under the MORAD issue of it is why it went, but it was still a big blow to our port. Without any knowledge or communication from the city to its partners in labor, the ILW Local 18 Longshore Union, it was a little shocking when I get a call from the president of the Longshoremen Union in Bellingham saying, hey, I want to talk to you about your LeBaire 420 crane. I said, yeah, what do you need to know? I assembled it. I'm the millwright that did it. He says, okay, perfect. He says, how long will it take to disassemble one? I said, I've never disassembled one. I said, if you want, have your local fly me up, I'll help you. He says, no, we bought your crane. That was my first hearing of it. That's not good. We can't have those relationships. We are in huge needs of transit sheds right now. We have lost customers to other ports, to the other port that would come here. By capturing all the work at the Port of West Sacramento would allow us to take all those trucks off the road that have to travel right past our port to get to the Port of Stockton. The trucks, with the cost of fuel, the maintenance, the drivers, everything going on right now, it drives the cost up to the customer, which drives the rate up everywhere else, which makes it harder to do. And as Ray just mentioned, they planted 500,000 acres. We have to be able to service these customers with confidence. We've not ran bulk cargoes in a year due to the fact that the city of West Sacramento has not invested into the conveying systems. They're not fast enough. They're not efficient enough. As the gentleman spoke earlier about dust, the dust systems weren't efficient enough. And so we have a new model that's before us today, what it would look like, a little bit greener, a little bit cleaner. But it still should not take away the fact that our port was built primarily as a bulk facility. We should not get away from that, because that's work that we should be able to capture and be able to service our region with our economic driver. It's important to do that. The talk about removing sheds and conveyors without making sure that the ILW longshore jurisdiction is recognized, preserved, and secured only adds to the workforce's anxiety. We have a system out there called F system that operated in the open area. And we caught a lot of lawsuits over that, filling people's office buildings across the street full of dust. But that facility was tore down. The shed was removed, the conveyors were removed, and we were told that in a Port Commission meeting that it would not offer any sort of jurisdictional boundary or guideline. And in fact, at that time, the previous Mayor Cabaldon said he would have demarcation signs saying that this does not create a jurisdictional boundary, and I had mentioned to him that that's exactly what it would do if we hung that sign on it. So recognizing something for what it's not sometimes makes it what it is. Since then, they built a fence around it. UPS operates that. That was the ILW's jurisdiction. The ILW at this point does support SSA's plan as long as we are ensured that our jurisdiction is secure, because that is the lifeblood of us. Without the jurisdiction, longshoremen don't survive. Without longshoremen, SSA can't be there. Without SSA being there, there won't be a port there right now because of how the model turned over to a landlord. But we were there before SSA. We want to support SSA. We've been there a long time. We're going to continue to be there a long time. We want to add to the solution, not to the problem. We do want to support this, but we do need security, just like our customers need security, just like SSA needs securities. So that is a big, big issue for my local. The next thing that's came up is the city of West Sacramento has not mentioned the ILWU, Longshore Division, as their partner in labor. SSA is a tenant in our home. That's our home. And for us not being mentioned as partners is a direct disrespect. It's completely 100% unacceptable. And we need to start respecting our partnership. I was asked to not fight this by multiple people from the city and from SSA. I don't want to fight it. I want to support it. But I also want us to be supported as well as partners in labor, because if SSA pulls up stakes and leaves, we're still at the Port of West Sacramento. That's a fact. We're not going anywhere. We're there. And the next thing is not mention the Port Commission as a decision-making capacity is concerning to me. The Port Commission should be in the decision-making capacity, and it's not mentioned in any of the paperwork. I would like to, at this time, I'd like to ask for us, formally ask for a workshop to be put together between the city of West Sacramento, the commissioners, and SSA and the ILWU Local 18, so we can either remove some of these anxieties or understand what positions we need to take to help fix the problem. And we are willing to do that. We are committed 100%. If you guys need help with grant monies, because there's no grants out there right now. We've only had 4 meetings in 12 months. And right now, pardon my language, we're trying to shove 10 pounds of shit into a 5-pound bag. Makes it rough. And we're up here on a limit, and it does make it tough. I would really support phase 1 of SSA's business plan if we can have another meeting securing our jurisdiction. And we do support it 100% as it sits right now, as long as we're supported with that jurisdiction. We don't want fences built around that. I was told in a previous meeting that they wanted to build maybe an art studio by the port. Well, you build a house at the end of the airport, they complain about the noise, and then the airport goes away. We got to watch this. This is an economic driver for our region, and this services hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs. We got 10 cement plants that Two Rivers services. That's the cement facility that's on the 83 acres at the North Terminal. We have Cemex down there. They service a lot of local and regional stuff, and not to mention that part of the international trades agreements for our rice. We need to be very aware of our partners and what's going on. And I really hope you guys hear what's happening here and reach out and let's have some conversations. I want to thank everybody for their time. I appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. Comments? All right. So if we don't have any additional slips to speak on this item, which I don't see we do, then, oh yeah, on there. So maybe we'll have, so Ray, if maybe you and Joe could respond to, I think, what we'll start with to my right. Any questions regarding your presentation would be helpful.
Hi, how are you?
Good, Hayden.
I am, so I'm Commissioner Early. I think we've met a couple times.
Yes.
So I appreciate your presentation. Thank you very much. It does sound like we're long overdue for updates. I have some questions regarding, you give us the construction cost estimates. And I heard both from you as well as the port manager that there are missed opportunities. And both, coming up this year as well as previous. And I was just curious, and you don't have to necessarily answer now, because ideally it would be with numbers. What are the benefits? So the return on the investments outside of, anecdotally that hey, we're missing opportunities. It would be great to know from your estimates financially, what opportunities are we missed? And in investing these dollars, this would be the potential return on investment and the probability of that return as well. I think would be really, really helpful as we take a look at this plan.
No, that'd be great, and that's something that was hard for me to even come up with a presentation, because we're a privately held company. So it's hard to like say in public of what we can actually do or what we can generate for the city. So I'd have to go back and figure out how we can do that, because there is people, probably my competitors, that want to know those numbers as well. So I think, but there is ways that we will be beneficial, and we've proven up to today that we'll continue, and just like of continue to grow the business. Just in general, like we've done it everywhere we've operated. We've grown our company everywhere we've been, and my hope is to show you how we can do that with our our network of who we are and what we do out of Oakland. We have container business there, and I see trucks all the time going to Reno and back all the time, and leaving the state. So there's things that we can do that may help with EV charging or other things. We did a blueprint as well.
So I appreciate the potential. I appreciate that the trust me, we got you. But it would be helpful to know, especially because it wasn't that long ago that our port wasn't financially sustainable. That in thinking about long-term investments and necessary updates, and even in potentially growing again, right? You're a businessman as well. So am I. And so when we think about the level of investment and not just simply updating, but also potentially expanding, how exactly, bottom line, is that going to ensure that we're not investing and potentially putting ourselves back into a hole, because we wouldn't want that. I think the only way we could do that, and again, I'm unsure of you giving up trade secrets, the only way we could be sure of that is to actually do some real financial analysis and some cost benefit.
Yes, I agree, and that's something that we do with all of our port authorities. But it's we hold meetings like a workshop where they come to us saying, okay, we have possibly this customer, and this is what we want to do, and how can we get there? And that's where we sit down with our port authorities or cities and come up with a plan, and then we can share those financials and look at how we can be win-win situation.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. We've had this great partnership, and I love that we're having a conversation about growth. I always talk about the port being near and dear to my heart. It moved my family here to West Sacramento. Grew up on that space, was able to tour it recently. Over the last several years, West Sacramento has grown significantly, and so we're looking at this opportunity of like what new commodities to go after. And I appreciate you mentioning that the cargo matching up with the climate action plan, but also what impacts it has on the area. And so I'm not asking for an answer now, but West Sac has grown, and the number one concern I hear from folks is traffic and the trucks on the road, and the additional money that needs to be invested in infrastructure. And so knowing what this growth would create and how we mitigate for traffic would be really important to me to know about, and how I can't imagine there's less trucks on the road, but how we work with that with this growth. And then I remember when there was the original chat of deepening the canal, and a lot of environmental groups were not supportive of it. So I now sit as a board member on the Yellow Habitat Conservancy. And in 2009, there was a study of, I'm going to get this terminology right, biological resources evaluation. And I'm just wondering if with the new warehouse being built, the new shed, I'm guessing that would trigger CEQA and NEPA and kind of those regulatory processes for buildings. But is there anything that's done with the water rights or the water and how the habitat there is protected, preserved, or mitigated with this type of expansion? I don't know if you don't have that answer now, that's fine, but that's another thing that I'm thinking about, and I've got my environmental hat on with that, because I know there's sensitive habitat there, and we have things not only living in the land, but in the water that don't exist anywhere else, and those need to be preserved or mitigated and protected. And then what was my other thing? Oh, yes, we talked about the new shed. I want to clarify some terminology so I get it right. Talking about space constraints, physical buildings. We need more space, and by that we mean physical buildings, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the new shed that's being proposed, or I should say phase one, let's just talk about entirely phase one.
Sure.
$7.7 million. Have we talked about who's going to pay for that? Is SSA, is that an investment SSA is going to make? Are there grant opportunities that we can go after to help fund that? Is it, half and half? What are your initial thoughts
all the
about
above, all the above. It depends on like what we go after. While talking with Rick about like what grants can we go after. Our company itself, we hired a whole sustainability arm, which in turn has an environmental piece as well. So we have a new environmental manager in Oakland that covers our area, so we can get those answered for you, all those different things for mitigation.
Okay.
And then also on the other side of the phase-in approach, it's like I said, we come to terms of what we can try to see how we can get help and support from a public-private entity. The public entity is kind of the driver usually. So like LA Long Beach, they got $700 million of I think it was IRA money, and then they kind of help their tenants with all that money. They help them move into like master electrification, zero emission equipment. So we work well. We have over 170 pieces of equipment in the state of California working that are all zero emission. And that's through public-private partnerships.
So hypothetically, we go after a grant. Are you looking to the port to take the lead on that grant? Does SSA take the lead on it? Do we hire a grant writer? What experiences have you had in that, and best practices?
We have like A, B, and C. We've done it where we get consultants. We've done it in-house. We've done it with the partner, with the Port Authority. They would do the grant writing. It's all kind of like where you sit down and say, okay, find what grant you're going to go after, and then what resources you're going to need, and then move from there and say, okay, how much money is that grant going to offer for the building? And then say, okay, what's the cost share? And what does that look like? And then so for us as well, asking the commission, what does that look like if we were to invest capital with continued extensions of lease? Because I can't put in capital as a company and not on just a 5-year lease as well. So that's something that we do when we want to put capital into ports. We want to make sure that we have the ability to get our money back. And that's with long-term lease agreements.
And then, one of the questions I had, which I believe it was answered, and I just want to make sure that I'm getting this clear, is one of my questions was how much more can we do with what we've got? And what I'm hearing is nothing. We've reached capacity. We can't bring any new business in. We are stuck. Is that what I'm hearing?
We are at, over 100% capacity to take on any new business.
Okay. And then I agree with, what are we? We are commissioners, Commissioner Early, on the potential cargo that could come in. I will say I appreciate the conversation about matching up with Climate Action Plan. As I mentioned earlier, the types of cargo that could negatively impact the neighboring areas. we had the comment earlier about dust and air quality, and that's, I mean, that kind of stuff is very concerning. And so it sounds like there's ways that we can protect against that, which is very important. And I think that's all I want to chat about at this moment. I mean, I will say, though, I'm a little bit confused, and then I don't know if I can direct this to Tim, asking for a workshop. What are you looking for that's not this? Because isn't this the workshop? This is a workshop, and so I'm confused on it, So can I ask what you were looking for?
Maybe you should.
Any other questions? All right, very good. All right. Commissioner
Just
Roscoe,
briefly,
yep.
I wanted to add to my colleague's comments, really impressive regarding the consistency with the area's climate action plan and the type of equipment that's being utilized in order to get us toward that end. That is quite impressive, and I appreciate that very much, and look forward to hearing more about that. I think I wanted to piggyback on Commissioner Sulpicio-Hull's question with respect to the roadways and traffic impact. But moreover, I wanted to ask, how do you envision working with the city on, and maybe you could also comment on, what type of infrastructure do you envision in addition to the roads that would help with the ingress and egress of an operation of such a magnitude once we do get to capacity in 10 to 15 years? And what are there, I know there's talk about the Enterprise Bridge. What are your thoughts about whether or not an investment like that is needed? And I also recognize that this is all three phases is 75, million. That's a pretty, do you envision that there would be adequate resources that we could apply for that would even get us close? I know we talk about the 7 million here and there or whatnot, but what are your thoughts?
When I think about the Enterprise Bridge, I think about how we connect the port to all those distribution centers there. They move containers in and out of the city. I look at a little roadway, heavy corridor coming in and out of the port that minimizes traffic. I've been trimming out the 7 years. I've been here 7 years in Northern California, and those drayage services on water didn't work back. Called the Marine Highway 580, and for whatever reason it didn't work. But the timing and changing climate, it's getting closer and closer to reality that using the waterways to get to the inland ports is going to be the future. Not my company, but I believe that personally is taking 1,000 containers off the road a week to start, or 250 as a pilot to start doing that maneuver with containers, and then coming to pick them up somewhere where we have good egress routes to and from. Using a lot of times at our ports, we use different times. We have appointment systems to not congest cities. So we have implemented throughout our network ways to move cargo in and out of our ports to make it efficient, and also, in regards to the community and the traffic. There's our current situation is we get trucks in the morning, and they park in our terminal. We get 25 trucks a day about 7 o'clock. And then from that point on, we get about 3 trucks an hour. That's all we get going into the port. Our cement terminal that's on the port as well, that comes to pick up the cement after they discharge it, they average about 80 trucks in a 24-hour period. So they're doing 3 to 5 trucks an hour. So there's other things that are happening around the port community that we need to take note of. That are causing more of the thoughts from the community, not just the port of West Sacramento. It's just a bad entrance, but there's more to it than just there's traffic. There's ways to fix it. But overall, there's ways to do like on the funding side of it. There's different ways to do it, and we've done it in Jacksonville, we've done it in Long Beach, we've done it in every place we've operated where we work at communities where we make it a win-win for everybody. And we find it where it works, and it may be $150 million to do all the phases. That was just a budgetary number that we saw in the beginning, because if we want to do, we don't know what CARB is going to do. Because with shore power, right? Because they want to plug in. Right now, the big container ports plug in their big ships. Right now, the break bulk and bulk ships aren't part of the regulation. So those are things that we have to keep an eye on. That's what we do too, is watching so we can get cleaner ships here or put bonnets on ships. Because they're going to happen in the Bay Area. The RoRo ships are, I think 2027, the big car carriers, they're going to have to be part of that regulation. So little by little, it's every California is cleaning up the maritime ports. And these are things that we have to continue to look at in the future with our partnerships with our customers in the city and say, okay, we want to have an environment and be a part of all.
Right. Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Ray, for being here for the presentation. I know you coordinated part of the presentation with Rick, in part to bring our terminal operator to the table so we can continue to have this dialogue on a regular basis, right? We don't meet very often. There's nothing being hidden as a result of the meetings that we don't have. We just don't have enough business, as we've all discussed here this evening, to meet and to force people to the table when there's nothing necessary. Sounds like you guys are plenty of busy. You got plenty of work at the moment, given the limited space and the footprint that you have at the port site. It sounds like there's at least some thought going into phasing different aspects of the investment plan, as we call it here. And so it sounds like there's already been some work, Rick, with regard to at least the first phase. It's very clear there's no magic bullet. It's going to require a public-private partnership, some capacity for you as a private investor with the terminal operator to know that there's going to be a return on that investment. And I think that goes the same with the Port Commission, right? We want to know that our investments are going to have value in its return on that investment. So it's going to require probably more than just a workshop. It's going to require these kinds of conversations occurring on a regular basis, whatever that might look like. So I guess I would turn to Rick to see whether or not you need anything from us at this juncture. It sounds like there's already work in the first phase, which includes some roof work, some striping. There's a shed, a new shed of sorts to create more capacity for more of the work that is already either happening with regard to the current commodities or the possibility of additional commodities coming forward. But there is no sort of magic bullet here. This is going to require additional, as I said, additional conversations and maybe more frequently. Unless I've mischaracterized anything, Rick, did you want to add anything in summary?
Sure. What I've heard tonight is consensus on the phase one proposal. That obviously needs refinement, needs a financing plan. We're happy to, have the longshoremen support that, so there's work ahead with myself and Joe, including the longshoremen, as collaborating on refining that plan and figuring out how to finance it. Come back to you with another You know, it could be a workshop. We might be ready for you to take action, but, there are more conversations ahead as we refine the plan.
All right. Does that make sense? Joe, does that work for you?
No, that works for us.
Okay.
I mean, just to make sure that we're, on a public-private partnership, like what we do, like in numerous locations. Usually the driver is the public entity. Usually it's the Port Authority that kind of is that sponsor on a lot of things we do all the time. So I'll work with Rick to come up with a plan. There's grants right now everywhere. That's why it's kind of for us, it's like, this is the time to do it because there's a lot of money for ports right now out, fed and state. So this is where we have to kind of look at where we can do that.
Just a quick question. So it sounds like there's a lot of grants out there. How exactly does that work between you both? When you're seeing those grants, as the leaseholder, do you raise that up to us, and then that's how we
Pretty much.
know? Okay, all right.
Yeah, we'll find some. We'll find some, and then we like me and Rick talked on one last about a month ago, 2 months ago, but the deadline was too short. And he'd probably bring it to the commission and say, this is what we want to do, this is what we agree upon, or what we're thinking, and then we can execute or not. And that's what we try to do. And we have someone that I work with internal that will find out, okay, how much do we want to go? And that's where it's going to be, the question will be, okay, if we want to put in 10 million for capital, then we're going to probably come back and say, okay, how long is that going to take me to get my return on my investment? So there's a little work to be done, but I think it's all doable.
Thank you.
All right, very good. All right, well, thank you so much, Joe. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here this evening. Thank you for the presentation. Rick, if there's anything else?
No,
Nothing else?
that's it. Thank you.
All right, so that takes us then to item 5, which is Port CEO report. There is no Port CEO communication from any of the commissioners, seeing none. Otherwise, our formal agenda, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.